Hello everyone, and thank you for coming on to my video today where I will be going over what I formally call the ontological account of God and the first theory of nothingness. Now, I hope that with this video, since it is the first video, I can shed some light on some of the logical propositions around God's existence and really trying to see it in a new kind of way, in a new light. And that's what I'm hopefully going to do with this video. And so if some things are confusing, please let me know what they are, so later I can maybe go back to them and try to explain what I was thinking when I actually conceived of these ideas. So without further ado, I will start the video now. Okay, so first we're going to be talking about chaos, and more especially what can we really define as chaos, and based on that definition, what chaos actually entails for us. So I will get started here. The first point, the absence of rules is a rule. So the first point being explained is that the absence of rules is a rule because it follows that there is an absence. So it's happening all the time. So therefore, it follows a rule, which is the absence of rules. The second point is things that follow rules can be classed as a system or part of one. And just a quick example is things that follow rules can be in a system, such as the rules of a classroom where you have to listen to your teacher, you have to do your homework, and that's classed as a larger system known as the school system. So here we see that things that follow rules can be classed as either a system of itself or part of one. Okay, so going to the third point, chaos then is a system of possibilities. When I say that, people may ask what I mean. I mean that chaos is a system of possibilities. It's the mapping of absence of rules, and that mapping is part of a system, which is chaos. If that's hard to understand, just think of it as possibilities are in a system, and that system is chaos, or which represents how these possibilities work when they are next to each other. So for the fourth point, therefore members of chaos must be infinitely recurring on themselves, which means that there is a possibility toward all undetermined possibilities back to themselves. And basically what this means is that the possibilities keep on going next to each other, because it's a system of possibilities. Then that means the possibilities are always acting as possibilities, and that means they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So the fifth point is there can be no maintained source of potential, because there's so much possibilities that there's no potential. Potential means that the possibility hasn't been realized yet. But in a system of possibilities, everything must be realized kind of at the same time, if you really think of it that way. So the sixth point is chaos cannot exist within time or space because its momentum should be infinite, but in a way that cannot contain itself, because it's so many possibilities, infinite possibilities onto itself. Therefore, when can you really say that this is when everything has been accomplished. So that in that manner, all these possibilities coming out of each other really can't be captured either in space or time in that manner, in that sense. I hope you understand that. So the seventh point is chaos needs time and space to properly define itself, or else what it would be purporting is self-contradictory. There would just be order, which is the preferred starting point. Because chaos is the absence of order, that which is absent should have ontological preference. Now, so what I mean when I say this is chaos needs time and space in order to propagate, or else it wouldn't be chaotic. It wouldn't be a system of possibilities. But as we've mentioned, a system of possibilities in itself is impossible to define. It's just by its definition impossible. Therefore, chaos is impossible, but we think of it as possible because we think of it as it existing in time and space. In that manner, then it's possible, but it contradicts the idea of itself. So it's not actually representing itself, but a watered down version. Okay, so in the eighth point, therefore chaos is a valid idea that cannot be properly executed in reality, but only exists in theory. Furthermore, what I'm saying when I say chaos is the absence of order, what I mean when I say that is that the first thing should be order, because that's what makes sense. Chaos is kind of making sense of itself, but order is what makes sense. So it's the absence of order, the absence of what makes sense. So that's what that which is absent should have ontological preference. Simply means order should come first rather than an absence of order, because order is what makes sense. So people like to go to chaos first, try to explain the universe, but I think actually we should try to reason for order being first, because that's what makes sense here. Okay, so on to the next slide. I hope you guys understand what I'm trying to say so far. Okay, so just a quick investigation here. We're saying that chaos needs time and space to properly define itself, or else what is it purporting? It would be self-contradictory. Okay, yep, there would be order instead. So that's basically what I've been trying to explain previously. And further elaborating on this, here it says, order does not need time and space, but only requires one component, which is either time or space, because either of these follow rules that are opposed to chaos. For example, the arrow of time always goes forwards and space always exists, so you need both in order to create chaos. Okay? So what I'm basically trying to say here is that order just needs either time or space to make sense of itself. Time always goes forwards, it follows that order, or space is always existing as a place of potential. That's order as well, but with chaos you need time and space, whereas order you just need one. And the reason you just need two when you're trying to make sense of chaos is because when we're talking about time and you're making chaos out of just time, that doesn't really make sense, because time goes forwards. Doing anything other than that, it would not be what we think of time. And space, okay, to create chaos you need some sort of momentum, right? And space is the place for that, but you need time to go forwards in order to create these random possibilities. So what I'm saying here is order should have, again, ontological preference, because it requires less possibilities to be made true. And here we have Occam's razor saying, the principle gives precedence to simplicity of two competing theories. The simpler explanation of an entity is to be preferred. Therefore, we can say order is the preferred starting point, also adding on to what I said last slide about how order is, well, chaos is the absence of order, but order is just order. So it's not it is the absence of chaos, but it's not a necessation. So order does not need to be an absence of chaos to be itself. It can just be order. What makes sense. Okay, so going to the next slide now. Okay, so we're going to be now talking about the arrow of possibility going backwards. So first, what is possibility? At least conceived through time. As time has its own arrow of entropy, we say that possibility must be impacted by some form of entropy as well. So what I mean by saying this is that possibility has some sort of history, and we can go back and we can see that actually it's entropying, and it's kind of becoming something greater as we go upwards. And here I'm saying there's an arrow of momentum that links the threads of possibility together. What this means is that a certain possibility is rendered through time. Its potentiality is realized sooner, partly because it requires less action to actually conceptualize itself. As a note, this momentum is not dictated by speed, but by the possibilities of possibilities mapping onto themselves or each other. In other words, as one goes backwards in time, less possibilities become actualized, and a potentiality for a single possibility grows larger. So what am I saying with this? Basically, what I'm saying is, so as we go backwards, we see that possibilities become greater, and we see less possibilities becoming actualized. So therefore, when these possibilities group towards each other, it goes into a higher category of possibility, which creates a potentiality for a single possibility at the top, which is just the potentiality for possibility itself. And we can see this is true because if you think of it, let's say we have apple and an orange, and we go back and we group these to a possibility. What? The possibility of fruit and vegetable. Okay, possibility of plant goes up, and we get possibility of trees, possibility of life, and it goes up until the possibility becomes a thing that represents everything. And that's what I'm talking about here when I'm talking about a potentiality for a single possibility. I'm talking about a possibility that represents everything. So on to the next slide. Okay, so now we're going to be talking about pure possibility. So when we look backwards, we see that the momentum becomes lessened, and that potentiality grows as well towards larger categories that may exclude time as a possibility. That potentiality is carried through less and less of vehicles of possibilities until we find that it stops at one single point in space and time, a single possibility. That point is completely inertial to itself and is what I will call pure possibility. Pure possibility is possibility defined at its stillest point, a possibility of itself to itself. There is zero momentum at this crucial area. But now the question then arises, what caused pure possibility to realize other possibilities other than itself? And this, I believe, is an important question with many metaphysical implication. So pure possibility is inertial, it doesn't move. Furthermore, it would be illogical to exclude pure possibility as a possibility, since some possibilities must have been met prior to the possibilities in themselves, and this is the first possible possibility of all. So therefore, it must exist a priori. exist as a definition to itself. Okay, so basically unpacking everything that I said here, basically what I'm talking about is at the top, the toppest possibility that could ever be thought of is the purest possibility, is pure possibility, just the idea of something being possible. And that is the first possibility, funnily enough. So this crucial point, this pure possibility, is inertial. And that's very important to know because it represents possibility in itself, and it is a possibility in that way, but there's nothing really that's gonna actualize it, or nothing really that's kind of gonna kick it out of the door and get it going. It's kind of inertial. It's kind of just an idea, and it's a possibility of an idea. And in that sense, it is basically possibility of itself to itself. So it's a possibility of itself to itself, and it's also a possibility. So what I'm saying is it's a possibility of something, and it's also a possibility of that something. So we're saying here also it would be illogical to exclude pure possibility as a possibility, since some possibilities must have been met prior to the possibilities themselves. This must be the first possibility of all. So what I mean is, like when I went upwards with the apple and the orange, to like a plant and to life, when we keep going up, we're gonna get towards ideas, and when these ideas group to a single idea, that idea must be the idea of an idea, which is pure possibility. That's what I'm trying to say here, is like the idea of those ideas must be something about possibility. Otherwise, these ideas would not be possible. You know what I'm saying? So pure possibility is the top possibility for all possibilities, and it's inertial. It's just an idea. It's stuck there. So moving on to the next slide. Okay, so quickly, I'm just gonna go over this. It's not too important of a point, but basically, to say that something other than pure possibility existed in its place is to betray Occam's razor's principle. Because why should the backward momentum of possibilities be stopped from its natural gradual resting point by something that interferes with this for reason A? So like I said, the more you go up that potential ladder, the more those possibilities are going to be harder to actualize, or the more that they're going to become a potentiality for possibility, and the potentiality of those become larger. So that's what I mean by this is a gradual resting point. It's already resting, but it's going to a single resting point. And why would something interfere with this? So I call that reason A. And why is reason A not inertial if it's a possibility in itself, a possible state of being possible? So this pure possibility is the only starting point for the momentum of possibilities, and it needs to be inertial. Really, it needs to be inertial because of what it represents. Like I said, an idea of an idea. Otherwise, another possibility would have to come before itself, as any actualization which comes from a momentous force must have been the product of a possibility rendered before itself as a possibility, and hence cannot be the first possibility. So what I mean when I say this is if something has momentum, it's not inertial. Something caused that momentum, and either that momentum was caused by itself, which should be, you could see that in the reasoning of that thing, but we don't see that when it comes to the first possibility. The first possibility has momentum caused by itself. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So basically what I'm saying is, if that thing has momentum, then something before it should have given it the momentum, or it should be obvious as plain day that this thing is contradictory, therefore giving itself the momentum. So that's just a quick kind of a glossing over the points I've already said before. So moving on to the next slide. Okay, so we have a quick investigation here with some points. So abstract law number 1, the only thing that can exist other than itself, if it is only by itself, is the negation of itself. So what I mean simply by that is that for every existence, we can negate that existence, and we will get the mirror image of that negation of that thing, which is the negated thing. And you can do this with math, geometry, and it's a pretty solid point that the only thing that can exist other than yourself, if that's the only thing that exists, is the opposite of that thing, and we cannot get rid of the opposite, and we cannot get rid of the non-opposite either. So these things always live to each other. So let's follow to the next points here. So let us see if it is possible to find the correct conditions for this possible negation. We know about pure possibility that 1, it is inertial, 2, it is moving towards possibility, has a possibility of itself. And then so using these fundamental points about pure possibility, which is kind of its essential nature, we now have the negation, which must fulfill these conditions. So we go from something being inertial to moving towards an infinite limit, which is obvious. And then we have something moving towards possibility as a possibility of itself, as something that is complete in itself, or is moving away from possibility as a possibility to itself. And I'm sorry for the dog barking. So basically, what I mean by this is that so something that's moving towards a possibility, the opposite of that is something that's complete in itself. So it's complete. It's not moving towards some possibility. It is itself in a way that exhausts possibility. So it is itself, and there's no possibility for it to not be itself. That's what it means. So basically this negation, which I will call figure B, posits a crucial important question in understanding this problem. What is its nature? It seems that figure B is moving all the time infinitely, and therefore is opposite to the non-negation figure A. But if we look closely, we can find that something complete in itself is actually a paradox. Okay, so let's go to paradox of itself. The complete in itself, figure B, is actually a paradox. This is because the condition that figure B must be completed is true, but in actuality, the condition that figure B is not completed, when thought in that way, must also be true due to nature of infinity having x numbers that can be added to it at all times. Therefore, there is no valid sense of completion in this way. Therefore, it contradicts itself at all instances because of two mutually exclusive perspectives. So mutually exclusive just meaning that these conditions need to be true 100% of the time. And what this means is that two opposing ideas of something can be true at the same time, which leaves that something as being contradictory and therefore never completed and never completely true. So what I mean by this is let's see if it says in the next slide. So basically what I'm talking about is the condition that something complete in itself must be completed is true, but when we talk about completion, there's always some number that is greater than another number, and this is a problem of infinity. So when we think about something being completed through possibilities, there are more possibilities, but we have to think of it as being true because it's complete in itself. It exhausts all possibilities in favor of itself. And then, so when we think about that, then it must be completed. So the idea is there that it is completed. But when we think about it in another way, in reality, it can't be completed because there's a bunch of possibilities that exist that it needs to exhaust in order to be the only possibility. So this means that this thing can never be completed and can never be completely true. It is contradictory and a paradox of itself. And it's pretty simple to see when you think about it this way. So again, this makes the complete in itself inertial and unable to influence any system other than its own, because it is continually influencing its own system in a contradictory manner, so that its potential is always kept within itself, in order to make sense of itself in two views that are not compatible with each other but always true to the same definition. Because of this trapping of its potential, there is no way that it can come out of non-order to produce something of order, which needs to influence pure possibility to begin itself. So what this means is that the negation of pure possibility is in non-order. It's a paradox. So how can something that's a paradox influence outside of itself when it's completely influencing 100% within itself? It's a non-order. So there's no way it can produce order because of its non-order. So how would we say this influences pure possibility? Well, first of all, you need order to influence pure possibility because the way that pure possibility is, it needs something to bring it out of the phase of an idea, and the only thing that can do that is a higher idea or a higher system. And like I said, systems are just mapping of rules. So we need rules in order to influence this pure possibility. So going on to the next slide here, we just have just some math, some logic here showing the contradictory behavior of the negation of pure possibility, or figure B. So here, all numbers at the current time x is infinity. All numbers at the current time x plus 1, or y, is infinity plus z, where z represents all potential numbers that can be added onto a given set of numbers at a single instant. Therefore, at x, infinity minus z, which was originally an infinity plus z, equals infinity. But infinity cannot be greater than infinity minus z, which is a contradiction. And there's one more contradiction here where infinity minus z equals infinity at x, and infinity plus z equals infinity at y. So what is the value of z? The value of z cannot be any number. Because it doesn't make sense. This infinity minus c equals infinity plus c, it doesn't make sense. So it's another contradiction, and all these contradictions have to do with anything that deals in the nature of infinity, including the negation of pure possibility. So on to the next slide, what is possible? So what is causing pure possibility to gain momentum that clearly does not belong to itself? The only other option is that there is something that exists outside the domains of existence itself. The potentiality for this is existence without existence, and can be a valid potentiality and solution to this problem. But there is a key difference to note here. Potentiality of existence without existence is vastly different than a potentiality of existence outside existence. The former still has a possibility because it is possible. In other words, possible states do not care about existence itself, but rather logical ideas within the realm of possible ideas. The idea that something can exist out of a set, even if the set is infinitely complex, is a valid idea and therefore made possible. Potentiality of existence outside existence doesn't make much sense because possibility must work within things that exist as a preliminary condition, as a requirement. So what I basically mean here is that potentiality of existence outside existence doesn't make sense. It's you're saying that the potentiality of something outside something exists. So if I said potentiality of oranges outside oranges, doesn't make sense, because how can you say there's a potentiality of something when you already excluded everything that something is? Or basically, put it in simpler terms, the potentiality of, let's say, work outside work. So the potentiality of work outside work, that doesn't make sense, because you're saying that there's a potentiality of something outside the existence of that something, which is needed in order to even be that something. So let's just think of it in that way, like the potentiality of work outside work, that doesn't make sense. Or the potentiality of swimming outside swimming, it doesn't make sense. But the existence without existence, does that make sense? So we're basically putting existence outside of the set of all things that exist. And that's actually possible, because if we say the set of all things that exist, that there exists something outside of that set, then you're basically saying there's a greater existence. And that's actually a logical idea. So when we have a whole bunch of things that we say everything that exists belongs here, is there a potentiality that something can exist outside of that set? And the answer is yes, because it is an idea of possible bearing of truth. So it's an idea that's possible, because the idea of something existing outside of something is always a possible idea. For example, can people exist outside of my family? Yes. Can existence exist outside of existence, a set of existence? Yes, because we're talking about a possible idea here. And I don't know, so in terms of an idea, it's valid, is what I'm trying to say. So going on to the next point, God in the big picture. Okay, so here we see, so what is the nature of a potentiality without existence? First, it would have to be completely whole as a preliminary condition to itself, a requirement of itself, because it lies outside of the realms of all existence. A completely whole substance is a potentiality of itself, and therefore doesn't require a potentiality of others to define itself. It is therefore eternal and first. This would be the only way for such a thing to exist in the domain of things that exist like this. I call this figure C for academic purposes, but we can also call this God. So figure C must also eclipse all existing ideas because of its nature of being overbearing over possibility itself, as an a priori definition to itself. So which can just mean pure definition of itself, I guess. Does this mean that it has knowledge of all things? It is hard to say, but we know that it has some form of power over the realm of existence and that it can fully ignore it, but must acknowledge its contents in a way that is just as contradictory as figure B or the negation of pure possibility. So we can call figure C God. So basically, in order for a potentiality to exist without existence, it would obviously need to be completely whole. It would also need to be a potentiality of itself, which means it doesn't require any potentiality of others, which is part of potentiality of itself as a term, and therefore it must be eternal and first, because if it's not first, it cannot be potentiality of itself. And if it's not eternal, then it cannot be completely whole. And also must eclipse all existing things because it is asserting itself over all possibilities in that set that I was talking about. Therefore, it eclipses them in a way that is contradictory while also acknowledging them. And this is a mystery. Okay, so that is basically what this slide is talking about. Okay, so very quickly we have who is God. So God is someone with complete ethics. He exists fully rather than questions the basis of existence fully, like figure B, which is the negation of pure possibility that we talked about earlier. So instead of questioning itself in a contradictory manner, it exists fully and breaks all contradictions. You cannot even give a contradiction to it because it is first and eternal, and it just breaks all logic. And it does this in a logical way because it exists outside of logic in a kind of the things of logic. So it can exist fully and not in a way that contradicts itself, like we saw in the negation. Therefore, God's existence is in an absurd relationship with itself, but within a maximizing drive towards existence itself, rather than an existence rooted in time. And what I mean by this is, with the negation of pure possibility, the existence rooted in time is always questioned, whereas here there is no time. It's just existence itself, and it's going towards it. It is it, and therefore its existence is valid and does not face any contradictions with logic. So like I said, figure C is fully whole before even realization or a priori conceptualizations or logic or existence. It just is. It just is. God is God. So that is the finale of it. And if you watch this video, I will be posting more in-depth kind of understandings of the different parts of this video. But I would just like to say thank you guys for watching this. And I forgot to mention that God or figure C or the thing outside of the logical things, because of his power and order, can influence pure possibility to begin. It has to be him, even if you use this simple method of elimination. It cannot be. It's negation. So what is the only thing that can exist in that terms? Either the negation, pure possibility, or chaos, which doesn't exist, cannot exist, only as an idea, but cannot exist, like I said, in real life. Then the only thing that can influence it is the thing outside of the set of things that can be influenced, which is God. And it's a possible idea. And is it possible in terms of the first ideas? I will call these group of things the first ideas. It's possible. So things that are possible have a potentiality, no matter how low it is. But when you go up, the potentiality for these things go higher too, because they are the only things that exist at that time. So you have to remember that. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll be posting more follow-up ones soon. Thank you.